Hi, I had a question about how to deprogram monogamy. So, in context of, American culture, which is very puritanical, kind of prudish and very heteronormative and monogamous, how does one deprogram all that messaging from a very young age and learn to, I guess, embrace, polyamorous identities in all of their different, types? That's the question, I guess, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
I'd be happy to address that. I'm ethically non-monogamous and identify as polyamorous and have been so for about 2.5 years. And I think what is really helpful is to start reading. There are a lot of really fantastic books out there. The go-to for a lot of folks is Ethical Slut. I recommended that book to someone today, and he was like, "Oh, okay, ethical butt?" And I was like, "No, honey."
That is a book I would read.
I mean, you got to be ethical with your butt, too. But, reading can be reading a book like Ethical Slut or A Smart Girl's Guide to Polyamory written by Dedeker of the Multiamory podcast, or More Than Two is another fantastic
Franklin Foe,
book.
Tristan Taormino, Opening Up.
Yep, Opening Up. There's a lot of really solid ones there, and I've read most of them, and a lot of them kind of overlap in what they're saying. So, like, it's not a do or die, like which book that you get. Maybe if you want to disagree with me, you can, but, like, they're all pretty fantastic. I think that's
I just think that The Ethical Slut is really boring.
Oh.
So I'm only quick to point that out.
Yeah, it's a little dry.
But that's a personal philosophy.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think Dedeker's book, Smart Girl's Guide to Polyamory, is actually pretty it's a fun read. It's a light read. So I think, because that's what I did before I even entered ethical non-monogamy, because I came from a very monogamous culture, even further embedded in a very fundamentalist religion view of that. So a lot of purity on top of that. So I found that before I even wanted to venture into it, I wanted to start that deconstruction. So I wasn't deconstructing while in this newly emotionally scary place where I'm dating new people outside of my legally contracted relationship. So I would advise in your deconstruction or anyone's deconstruction of monogamy, if they choose to. Not everyone wants to deconstruct, but if you should be interested in doing so, or at least opening your mind to, or pushing yourself to approach the fact that maybe you're consciously monogamous, you're aware that there are other choices, you're aware that they're all valid, that can be a way to go. And reading that book can really expose you to a lot of the other lifestyles that people are living and expose you to how people manage that ethically. And it also points out a lot of the common narratives and culture with which maybe from the I don't know what position you are with this, but cognitively with this, but it can help you point out those narratives. Like, it's so embedded in our culture, this monogamy culture, this codependent, toxic monogamy. There's nothing wrong with monogamy. Toxic monogamy, not so great. So if you can start deconstructing that before you even get into it, that can be a really great place to start.
Also, if you have people like this in your social circle, talk to people who are poly or ethically non-monogamous. I know that for me, when I first started thinking about it, I was like, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm anxious. I'm a little bit possessive, maybe. Like, I probably couldn't even, be in that situation. And then I talked to one of my friends, and she was like, no, yeah, like, everyone deals with that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you just have to know how to handle it healthily and honestly with your partners. But, just because you might have an emotional response that isn't always 100% positive doesn't mean that it's off the table for you at all.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo what these two ladies have said, but even expand it further to just say your diet in general. Reading these like sort of how-to non-monogamy books is a great way to just educate yourself, make sure you're doing things in a knowing and intentional way. Being in community and talking to other people about poly issues or about non-monogamy issues, and having somebody to sort of test yourself against is important. But when you're talking about experiencing the stigma or sort of the mental assumptions, that's just because this is the water you've been swimming in for a long time. And so I would say everything in your diet. Whether if you're not a big reader, there are some great movies. If you're not really into movies, there are some other TV shows. I mean, whether you're listening to podcasts, watching YouTube channels, I mean, just really jumping in. I would probably recommend Wanderlust on Netflix as a great non-monogamy show. Sense8, as we all love, as we've talked about, sort of references some of these ideas. There are great options when it comes to podcasts. Just
Between Us by Allison Raskin and Gabby Dunn talks about this a lot, and they're really, really good.
Yeah, so becoming just sort of inundated and immersed in the culture of non-monogamy after having spent however many years deeply immersed in a strictly monogamous culture, you can really start to deconstruct some of those stigmas, some of those like, ooey, gross, intellectually I'm okay with it, but emotionally it feels weird. You can start to desensitize yourself to some of that discomfort by just recognizing polyamory or non-monogamy in your daily life. Mm-hmm. And you can really do that through reading, podcasts, movies, music, all of these things.
Yeah. I think for me, it helped to research it ahead of time because then I knew what to expect. Mm-hmm. I knew to expect jealousy, possessiveness, hurt, insecurity. Because otherwise, if I hadn't done that pre-work and I didn't know what was coming for me potentially, it could have gone really poorly and I could have really struggled with making my partner own that or feeling like, oh, maybe I'm just not cut out for this or something. But having done that pre-work really set me up for success to be able to handle those feelings when they came up. And as I always told my partner, because I know I look really polished right now, but when we started poly just a couple of years ago, I went through a year of hell, after my partner started dating someone else. And I knew it was probably going to happen, but I didn't know to what extent. But doing that, getting really educated on it and knowing what to anticipate really helped me manage that and to not externalize it onto someone else. And I always tell my partner, our common enemy, you are not my enemy. Just the fact that you're going around banging this chick over here, and then that makes me feel bad, does not mean that you're doing something bad, that you are the problem. The problem in the way I'm viewing my particular situation, the problem for me was the toxic monogamy culture. And so it really helped both of us to keep that in mind, that we're not each other's enemies, that this is something that we're working to deconstruct. That said, it takes a lot of work. It's really, It can be, maybe you'll get into it and be like, oh, this is super fucking easy. I have no problem at all. Maybe, but I wouldn't recommend it for people who, I would ask you to think and do some research if you struggle with communication, if you struggle, if you don't really like working on your shit, which is okay. If you don't want to work on your shit and you just want to eat cookies until you die, I was thinking about doing that, but then I decided to work on my shit. But if it's really hard for you to engage in this kind of emotional processing, this could be really difficult. And I think reading those kinds of books will give you a good view of what's coming, and maybe you'll be like, yeah, I don't want to deal with those feelings so much.
Well, also there's the concept of being monogamish as well.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily you have to be 100% committed to one person or else relationship anarchy, or, a primary and a secondary partner. It can be whatever you want it to be, again, as long as you're, holding those cards and saying, I have this, what do you have? So yeah, I mean, if you want to be oh, let's just, I don't know, watch a cam girl together, and like that's kind of a way to maybe start, and say, is this something we like? Okay, what if we actually went on a date with somebody together? Maybe you guys are interested, if I don't know if you're partnered or whatever, but yeah, there are different ways to do it as well. So it's not like an either or type situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the fluidity of it all, once you get into ethical non-monogamy, can be overwhelming. That you can literally, you really
Non-monogamy is anything that is not monogamy.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a lot of options.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming that now, that's the reason why people like escalators. You know what to expect. There's
no choice paralysis.
Yeah, but now when you have literally everything on the table, so long as everyone consents and has full knowledge, that can be overwhelming, because now it's up to you to know yourself, to know what you want, and that can be tough. That can be really tough if you haven't had to think about it your whole life.
Yeah, and with me, it's going to be a year until I can at least get I should just say I'm trans, so it's I have to work a lot on my own, medical transition before I would say even get in a serious relationship, because I don't feel at a point right now where I'm comfortable in my own skin, so to speak, to go out and try and find, someone that I would, or people that I wouldn't mind having a more romantic, serious relationship with. But there's also the fact that I'm going to go to university and med school, so that's going to be a long time before I can actually get serious relationship. But again, that's a lot of time to work on this stuff,
and it's worth remembering when you're choosing your own relationship, maybe a serious relationship, quote unquote, isn't right for you right now. And it makes total sense to have that philosophy. But that's also not to say that you can't have a relationship. If you choose something less serious, something more serious, that is a dial that you have the right to slide back and forth. You can play with that slide bar and decide how significant or meaningful these relationships need to be for you.
Can I just challenge the word, what did you say, serious? Because I think a lot of these different structures that we might judge as serious or not, they're still, very serious. I think coding it that way feeds into that escalator assumption that you need to have these strong emotional components or a strong amount of a lot of time spent together to be considered serious. And I think there's a lot of variety and
maybe intentional relationship.
Yeah, I think I like that word a lot. I don't mean to say no to you on your show, but I don't know. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about. That there's a lot of ways for these relationships to manifest themselves that don't need to be qualified as serious or casual or whatever. It's what you make it. It's what is between the 2, 3, 4 of you, or whomever. So anyway, just wanted to inject that.